So I took all of those little things that I had on this mental checklist and said, well, if I ever make my own business, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing it this way.
So almost a manifesto of how you're going to run your business?
Right. I
Nice.
didn't like that, so I'm taking it with me, and I'm doing it this way.
Today's episode, we have Jenny Young from She Did It, and she'll be talking to us about small business ownership and how to incorporate video and what it means to be a videographer. So Jenny, thank you for taking time to be here today.
Well, thanks for asking.
Absolutely. Can you give me a short summary of what you do and how you got started?
Okay, what do I do? Well, I'm a small business videographer. I'm a community booster upper. Yeah, you like that?
I love that.
I'm a content creator. I help small businesses create content. What was your other question?
How'd you get started?
Oh, how did I get started? Woo. Okay, well, the short answer is I got fired.
That's a little awkward.
That's a little awkward. There was a polite disagreement
Okay.
about video being made. So a very long story short, I was applying for jobs, ended up in Cleveland. I was at a long mahogany table with two men.
Oh.
Applied for the job. I was perfect.
Okay.
I was going to, instead of being in my car, I was going to fly around Ohio and film content, just B-roll.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought I had the job. And then they called me and they said, well, you're a mom and we can't guarantee that you'll be available.
What?
Yeah, I didn't know that that was like a no-no.
That's not.
That's a huge no-no.
That's a huge no-no.
I didn't know you then.
Yeah, you didn't, clearly.
Yeah. So I actually went home, got really, really mad. At the time, I was training for an Akron marathon. So this is like years ago. I don't do that anymore. And I just created She Did It while I was running.
Yeah.
Because I was really mad at those people. And I said, well, if you see my videos, you're going to have to ask who did it. Oh, well, they'll have to say she did it. So I named it She Did It. And then my tagline is, who did it? She did.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So besides being fired and being a mom,
Yeah.
How did your personal values and experience shape the values and vision for your company?
Well, I think it was all learning. It was all of the things that I had done that led up to the position that got me fired. Mm-hmm. And with that, you learn things. You learn the boss you want to be, you learn the person you want to be, you learn who you want to be in the community.
Yeah.
And all those things just kept piling up. And there was, under the surface, a level of frustration. Because when you have a boss and you're not your own boss, especially in a creative space, all those creative things that you want to do keep piling up. And I have to go ask somebody previous to She Did It, can I do this? This would be fun. I like this. What about this client?
Yeah.
And I got no, or it's not in the budget, or we don't have the time, or that's not worth it, or that's not our values. That's not what we're representing. So I took all of those little things that I had on this mental checklist and said, well, if I ever make my own business, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing it this way.
So almost a manifesto of how you're going to run your business?
Right. I
Nice.
didn't like that, so I'm taking it with me, and I'm doing it this way.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more about your personal values and your whys in a little bit. I'd like to talk about your business for a few moments and talk about what you do in video, especially because I know you do it for small businesses, which is amazing and valuable. And oftentimes, small businesses go, I don't have the budget. They're afraid of it. So you emphasize the importance of consistency in video marketing. I've known you for a long time. So how can small businesses effectively work through their budgeting concerns and kind of schedule and be consistent in their content and their video creation without sacrificing some of the business activities that keep them moving?
Yeah. I think first they have to realize that they're worthy of video.
Oh.
Once you realize that you're worthy of video, you understand how to find the budget for it. And I think the beautiful thing is that, you know, some of these businesses have been in business a very long time. And so when they thought about video, there really was no, you know, me and all these other videographers that are out there that are solopreneurs, or they have a niche sort of vision, which mine be small business and nonprofits only. You know, I think before small business called upon a production company.
Yeah.
And they were either, a wedding company, and they didn't really understand the ins and outs of small business, so they were just giving numbers, which then scared small business because oftentimes those numbers and those values are very large.
Expensive.
They weren't, those particular people are doing things that really aren't tapped into the small business world and understanding the small business budget. So I think that scared a lot of people to not even consider how to work it in their budget, how to even think about it. So I think it's, revisiting your worth in video. I mean, it's everywhere now, and you can do it with your phone, no problem. But then it's time.
Yes.
Do you really want to, Chrissy, did you really want to dedicate that time?
No, I did not.
You tried, right?
I tried.
You did try. And then that's how you ended up finding me.
Yes.
Because then you knew that, well, I can do it. I can buy the equipment on Amazon or wherever, or a prominent site. And then you realize, well, yeah, but that takes time.
It does. And then I have to figure out how to shoot it, and then I have to edit it. And that was just awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then comes the time piece. So being worthy, putting it in your budget, small or big. And now you have, people like me, and there are other people in the community who can help you. So then you have specific videographers who you can ask, and you can get a more attainable goal. So then you get pricing from those people, and then you figure out, okay, well, what can we do to work in that price point versus calling a production company that's, predominantly working with commercials or, charging for long hours for a wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, in my experience in first starting to get introduced to video before I even felt like we were worthy of it was we're going to spend $10,000 to $15,000 for a 30 to 90 second video. And how many times can we repurpose that sucker and put it on every page of our website so that doesn't completely annoy all of our target audience? And you have a different perspective to how to use and repurpose. So I would love to hear how you talk to small business owners, because you've coached me through it, but how to use their content, how to reuse content, and then how to get more for some of the things you're working through.
So to me, I've always said, it is like, think about that radio jingle that you know from your kid. And you can just say it. You can tell your kids about it. You'll randomly start singing it. It comes on the radio. You hear it. And why do you know that commercial? Because it was played time and time and time again. And you see it in, something like a Super Bowl ad, where if you're watching the Super Bowl on the first day, you're going to see that long 2-minute, very long commercial. And then a few moments later, you're going to see the same commercial, and they've parsed it into a million different bits. You're never going to see it the same way, or you're going to see its final version. You'll never see that long 2-minute again. So, and you never know in that moment when you're sharing that video who's watching. You could catch me one time, oh, that's really great. And then if you never share it again, that person that you need to see it might not have been on the internet that day. That might not have been browsing social media. They may not have found your website. Sometimes it takes, not sometimes, it takes repeat over and over and over again for you to begin to feel like a familiar brand, like a Coca-Cola. Small business has to work harder.
Yeah.
To be seen or be understood as something that feels familiar. Whereas Coca-Cola or any of those big names, am I allowed to say any of those big names? Big box. Sorry, Coca-Cola. Big box will, do it one time and get to walk away from it. You know what I mean? Whereas we have to work really, really hard and don't give up on the thing you've created, because chances are the person who needs to see it maybe wasn't on the internet that day. So you need to share it over and over.
So you're giving me food for thought, because there's that one camp of, well, I did this and I put it out and everybody should see it. Like I should never have to do it again. And then there's the other extreme, which is I'm going to use this post every day, 5 times a day. So what you're telling me is that there's a sweet spot. And chances are, if we tend to gravitate towards the I'm only posting it once and the whole world will find it because I'm amazing, versus I'm going to always post it, that if we only post it once, we need to continue to post it probably a little bit more than we're comfortable. And if we post it all the time, we probably need to dial it a little bit back. What's the sweet spot in your opinion? I
don't know if there's a magic answer to that. I would just say that The wrong way is to post it one time and walk away and think that you're just going to bring in all the clients and customers and everybody's going to see you. And then there is some sort of magic that happens between knowing how to repurpose something that's not dated. You know, obviously, if you have some Halloween video, you're probably not, there's times where and when to share that.
I can't put a Santa hat on the pumpkin?
I mean, you could,
okay,
but I'm down for it. You know I am. Well, let's talk about that later. And then to the other end of the spectrum, where if you're posting that same video every single day, then you've crossed the line and it looks like your kids got a hold of your social media and your website and something's wrong. You don't understand how to schedule things.
Yep.
So there's magic in between. There's definitely that. Don't just put it up and walk away and think it's going to do magic for you. You do have to do the time and put a little work. Understand it. It is a tool. Video is a tool.
Okay.
And if you understand your tool, the ins and outs, and you understand all the different ways that are given to us through a podcast, even in an email link, LinkedIn, somebody 2 days ago asked me if I could create a video for them as a waiting room for Zoom. And I said, I have never heard of that before. Let's try that out. So understanding video as a tool.
Okay.
The same video across multiple avenues.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does the use of video impact the customer experience for small business?
I think you understand these people and who they are, especially when you're talking about small business, right? So to me, small business for a town or a city is like the catacombs of how the city is run.
Yeah.
If you understand, I know you do, we talk about it often. If you understand the ins and outs of your particular city or any city you visit, you kind of are understanding this extra sweetness that's happening and a whole lot of hard work, right? So when you're walking in and out of these stores, you don't necessarily know who these people are. But then if you're tapping into their social media and you're seeing videos like we do, where we're asking the kids to do these silly things, if you pay attention to Christy Myers, you will have seen her children grow up.
That's true.
And you will feel connected to her. You will feel, a part of the puzzle. You will feel, just more than you are a client. You will feel more of a business relationship. I'm sure you have I'm sure you have people ask you all the time how your kids are because they've seen them in video and grow up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how some have seen, because since we continue to repurpose content, so we've got some older content where the kids are much younger and they're like, how's fifth grade? And I'm like, oh, they're in high school. Like it's changed, but we've created that evergreen content with messaging that you have helped us do to continue to facilitate kind of growing and giving our mission in our small business. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
So how you emphasize the role of video in showcasing the heart of business. So can you give the listeners just a quick lesson around how they can convey their values, mission, and personality through video?
Oh, that's so deep. That's a deep question, because then that asks, so I always say one of my rules is don't put everything in the kitchen sink in your first video.
Oh, that's really good. Because especially when we first get started, we want everybody to know everything.
Everything. And it used to be, these are my hours, and this is my location, and this is, and this. And by the time you get to the sweet stuff, like how the pasta sauce is made, like, well, we've wasted all that time on all these other things that anybody can Google and find about you.
Wow, good point.
Yeah. I think that a lot of times small business is very invested in their business.
Yeah.
And they cannot see who they are. So you have to bring somebody else in, be it a videographer or a photographer or anybody, and kind of challenge you to see your business in a different light.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Especially, you make a really good point. I think whether it's video or even some of the other things that we use in our business, when we bring in a third party or bring in a consultant to kind of ask us questions, because we see everything every day. We're in it every day. And we're not always paying attention to kind of what's going on in the periphery, or even that basic conversation about your customer, because things can constantly be changing. And if you're always in the work, you're not always paying attention to what should be happening on versus in the business. So.
Or you're giving the generic answer. So there's a good example where I'm working with a woman and we're teaching her how to do content.
Okay.
And her business, she is email marketing.
Okay.
And I see her doing all this great, fantastic content, but she is using jargon that is like so above my head. So the last time I ran into her, I said, you know, you're using jargon as if we're on like a college course and we're about to graduate. And sometimes I see your content and not consistently, and I have no idea what you're talking about. You know the ins and outs of your business so well, and you assume that everyone is on the same level as you. We need to bring it down just a touch every once in a while to that 101 course, because you're so immersed, you're so deep in it. You know, bring it back to the why you got started, the who you are, and have somebody else ask you those questions, because you're going to give those generic answers and you don't really realize that you've been doing it so long that there's something way deep inside you, like kind of like your book, where you're like, okay, I'm ready to do the book.
Yes, I did write a book, but we're going to talk about that right now. I want to talk about you and what you're doing specifically in the community. So one thing that I really appreciate about the work that you do is you are extremely community driven. So I like to know, I know, but I'd like you to tell the audience how you integrate philanthropy into your work with She Did It, because I think it's so cool.
Well, what am I not doing? I had to actually say no at one point.
You did? Good job.
I did, because I don't have an extra set of arms or legs or a brain. And I really want to say yes to a whole lot more and volunteer more, but you just really run up against a wall where you start going to meetings and you have no idea what people are talking about. And that's when you know, okay, you need to stop and dial it back.
Good lesson.
So I actually run the social media for my son's soccer organization.
Yes.
I run the social media for the Wadsworth Older Adult Foundation. I also sit on the board. I'm very active in that community, the senior community. I sit on the board of WCTV. We are currently working on upgrading the studio and bringing that space into like the now kind of thing. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. There's a lot of behind the scenes volunteering that I do, because early on in my career, we know Glitter Girl, Heather. She taught me a lesson that I thought was pretty smart and eye-opening, is that, you don't always have to put out where you're volunteering or where your give backs are. If you're doing that publicly, then, sometimes those things aren't, it just doesn't come across the right way. So there are a lot of undercover, I'm sure there's a lot of things that you do and you have your hands in it. It's like, this is personal. Yeah. So there are a lot of moments that are personal. There are a lot of moments where I write checks that no one can see. We don't talk about it. It's just, this is what it needs to happen. I need to put my hand here. I need to help.
I love it.
Yeah.
So as a small business owner, small business leader who also is passionate about the community, what are the words of wisdom that you would have for a small business owner that's thinking about getting involved in their community, especially because, your time is limited. You're also a mom. Yeah. So how do you balance that time? I know you said you've said no before, but especially because you do video, and I would think that it's in demand, and so people would naturally gravitate towards wanting to work with you or have you volunteer with them. So what words of wisdom do you have for individuals who are starting to dip their toe into community work and volunteering as a small business leader? Yeah,
it's definitely very eye-opening when you volunteer yourself, when you give your time for free. It is also very eye-opening when you overextend how often you say yes.
It's a painful lesson.
Yeah, or give yourself for free. So the lesson lies somewhere in there. And almost you must get to the point, I think, where you say no. But even if you're not a small business, even if you're not a nonprofit, if you're just a human thriving in your community and you love your community, I feel like everybody should help out somewhere, because there are a lot of nonprofits that I think that not a whole lot of people know about that could really use help. I think it's super beneficial to just volunteer your time to keep the community thriving. That helps those. So there's the answer somewhere in there. You do a little bit, and then you max yourself out, and then
you dial yourself back.
Yeah, and then your answer lies in there somewhere.
Okay. So what are your long-term goals for She Did It?
Oh, man. Right now is the first year where I wasn't afraid that if I didn't do something, someone would forget about She Did It. That Jenny has disappeared, something's wrong in her business, that I felt like I had to keep going, had to network everywhere, stretch myself too thin kind of thing. So right now I'm just living in that space because it feels really good and relaxed to be able to have a day that maybe is just for me, building my energy back up, because it is very exhausting to be on a lot.
Yeah,
I'm sure you know.
absolutely.
You have those days where you're like, this is a recovery day.
Yes.
So to sit in that recovery day and to enjoy the recovery day
And not work on
and to
recovery
not,
day?
yeah, plates
Good
don't
job.
spin on recovery day. So right now there are really no large she did it plans. There are some other creative avenues that I'm getting into, kind
Okay.
of in the creation space and teaching people how to create content and to not be afraid of doing that for your small business.
Okay.
And I think that there's something there. But right now, getting Jet through school and that life, we're just going through it. This is where we are. This is who we are.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if you have your last parting words of wisdom, if there's one thing that you want small business owners to know about video, there's one lesson, what would that be for them as their takeaway?
That you are worthy of video.
Thank you. All right, Jenny, I've had a wonderful time getting to talk to you. I love that I get
thanks.
to see you today.
I
and
know,
hope
thanks.
that our audience has learned a lot more about video and they all consider themselves worthy and capable of doing it. And if not, they know who to call.
Yeah. Put it in your budget. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.